es más que complacer a un cliente. Es un punto de venta conectado al Internet con fibra óptica de Spectrum Business, que registra todas sus transacciones de forma segura y es respaldado con servicio al cliente, las 24 horas del día, 7 días a la semana, localizado en los Estados Unidos y técnicos locales. Es todo lo que importa. Obtén Business Internet Advantage gratis, para siempre, cuando te cambies a Spectrum y obtienes 4 líneas mobile. Visita spectrum.com/free for life para más información. Se aplican restricciones. Servicio no disponible en todas las áreas.
Trump's a wild guy. He's a wild guy. I'll tell you something he did that made me crazy when he was running for president. When he was running for president, he said this at a debate. He said the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, were eating people's dogs and cats. That really upset me because I live in Ohio. In fact, what's up, Ohio?
Dave Chappelle is one of the most influential stand-up comedians in the world. He's had a hit TV show on Comedy Central. His stand-up dates sell out. He's won a prestigious Mark Twain Award, and now he's got a new title to his name, landlord of a public radio station in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Chappelle has been living in Yellow Springs off and on for decades, so when the local member station, WYSO, needed a new building, Chappelle stepped up.
3, 2, 1!
After 6 years and Chappelle's capital investment, WYSO has a new home in the historic Union Schoolhouse, which Chappelle owns.
I'm so relieved and grateful that we found a way that you guys could stay with us, and I'm really honored, even in a small way, to be part of it.
A day after the ribbon cutting, Chappelle and I sat down under the exposed beams of the 150-year-old building for our video interview series, NPR's Newsmakers. There have been major figures, I'll just say rich people who have wrapped their arms around media organizations before, and it has gotten inconvenient for them. Let's say, for the sake of argument, they cover a story involving some of your business interests in town in a way that you don't like. What you gonna do?
Well, cross that bridge. I mean, it's happened before. Well, I've heard them say things or criticisms of my work on the station or on NPR. I mean, that's part of my job. But the relationship that this place has with our community pre-exists my career.
Do you see journalism and comedy being related in some way?
Incredibly.
How so?
Well, first of all, journalists determine what the baseline reality is. There's been times where I could write an act that's just a rebuttal to reporting. What I like about NPR's reporting is fact-based, but she'll cut the meat. The journalist will ask the question, I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? Tell us what that means. And the person will explain something. This contextualization is what comedians do. We're like a nation's kidney. We help everyone metabolize not just facts, but feelings around facts or ideas. And jokes are just a shorthand for all of that.
Do you feel like your job is to be provocative, controversial?
No, I don't court it. I just don't flinch from it. Because at the core, I'm a filthy nightclub actor. I started in smoky rooms in D.C. and black crowds and white crowds and people had drinks and they said what they said back then.
A lot of black people feel the way they have to navigate the world is to keep things stuffed down, right?
That's
Is
right.
it fair? So I think that a lot of black comedians, their role has often been to give people a release, to let them say the things that they can't say when they're going to their job or whatever. But now you are international, and I wonder, do you feel like your job is different?
No, the mechanics are the same. Now I'm an ambassador of a genre more than I was. I'm an ambassador of American culture more than I was. I got all that flack for doing that festival in Saudi Arabia, but in Saudi, for like the last, really maybe 15 years, they've been trying to do comedy shows in Saudi Arabia. Underground shows. The jokes were like contraband. These shows would happen in people's homes. They would happen in embassies. Man, in Riyadh, that crowd watching that comedy, the first time the government let them even see something like this, it was like a baby tasting sugar. If I had choked a tiger out, they couldn't have been more impressed. They were screaming.
You think you're creating space for them That
I
wouldn't
mean,
exist?
at the very least, and this is not nothing, that must have felt incredibly cathartic if you can't say everything you want to say, but you see somebody model that behavior. Oh, man, you're going to want it. So if you think of all the violence and all the things we export to the Middle East, I think our culture is the best export we got.
But
I didn't feel wrong being up there.
okay, U.S. intelligence did make it clear that they believe that the Saudis killed Jamal Khashoggi in the embassy in Turkey, and you knew that when you went, right?
Oh, absolutely. Now,
You
I should tell you,
you had no qualms?
I won't say that. They asked me to go years before that, and I said no for that very reason. Since that time, the United States government does business with the Saudis. Netflix does business with the Saudis. And none of these things were an issue until I went there. Now, why is that? As soon as a black man can make money off the plantation, they try to tell you that the money is dirty. Well, okay, I'll go home and spend the money with actual slave owners on it.
I know you talked about comedians as being like the nation's kidney who process like all the things that people feel, like all of it, right? We are in a moment where the President of the United States expresses things that many people find deeply offensive, and I'm just wondering, does that change your work? Do you know what I'm saying?
No, and he's a bad example because he has a dismissive shorthand about people. You know, you can opt out of my crap, but you shouldn't have to leave America because the president's making the block too hot for you. And I did resent that the Republican Party ran on transgender jokes. I felt like they were doing a weaponized version of what I was doing. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
This is before I learned the phrase, I respectfully decline. And I was on Capitol Hill, and everybody ran up to take pictures with me from every congressional office. And then here comes Lauren Boebert. And she said, can I get a picture? And I'd already taken 40 pictures. I didn't want to say no in front of everybody. So I just took the picture. And then she posted a picture before I could even get from there to the show and says something to the effect of just two people that knew that it's just two genders. She instantly like weaponized it or politicized it. So I got to the arena and I lit her ass up for doing that. And she should never do that, a person like me. But now she knows.
In our interview for NPR's Newsmaker series, Dave Chappelle and I talked a lot more about the jokes he's made about transgender people and other jokes that some find hurtful and dangerous, and if he thinks President Trump is funny.
We got McDonald's hamburgers, McDonald's. I got McDonald's.
If you've been to a fast food restaurant in New York City recently, you may have noticed a little triangle on the menu next to certain items. Some have a salt shaker, others have a tablespoon of sugar. Those are warning labels indicating a dish has more sodium or added sugar than you should probably eat in an entire day. New York City implemented the country's first added sugars warning labels at chain restaurants last October. Meanwhile, the sodium warning labels were adopted back in 2015. Now, the health commissioner who oversaw the city's rollout of sodium warning labels is arguing for a set of bills that state lawmakers are considering that would put similar warning labels on junk food at chain restaurants across the state and limit how that food is marketed to kids. 3 bills. They're called the Sodium Warning Bill, the Sweet Truth Act, and the Predatory Marketing Prevention Act. And with me now to make the case for these bills is Dr. Mary Bassett, public health physician, former New York City Health Commissioner and New York State Health Commissioner, and professor of practice of health and human rights at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Dr. Bassett, always good to talk. Welcome back to WNYC.
Thanks very much for having me, Brian. Pleasure to be here.
By way of background, you were the New York City Health Commissioner when the city rolled out sodium warning labels back in 2015, the first policy of its kind in the country, I believe. So what does the city already have, and how would the sodium warning bill go further?
Well, of course, New York City has long pioneered giving people more information about the food that they eat in fast food chains. That began with the calorie posting. That was back in 2006 under Tom Frieden and the Bloomberg administration, and followed later in terms of warning labels with a sodium warning label that you've just described. So New York City has done both of these things, warned about added sugar and warned about the added sodium in our diets. Both of these are important drivers of what we call diet-related diseases. They drive overweight, obesity, diabetes. They drive high blood pressure, dental decay, which having, dental caries has broader effects than just ruining your teeth. So these are important health issues and ones that are preventable. And that's why I'm very much hoping that the state acts to take these out of committee and bring the information that New York City residents already have to the rest of the state. Now, the predatory marketing bill really is an ambitious and important bill because it talks about how children are targeted, not just on television and in stores, but on social media, and encouraged to badger their parents for food. And this would empower the Attorney General to take actions to protect children from marketing foods directly to them that aren't good for them.
And we'll talk about that in some more detail as we go. I want to get into whether these warning labels have any effect. I do see a 2023 study in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine found that added sugar warning labels reduce the likelihood that consumers would order high sugar items. But I also see that earlier real-world studies of New York City's sodium label found limited changes in what people actually ordered. So to what extent do you think these warning labels really change our habits?
Well, the first thing to say about these is that having information is part of being a good democracy. If people don't have the information, they have no opportunity to use it. So I don't think that it's necessary to prove that there's a direct health impact, to argue that we should provide this information so that people can use it. It's available to them. And as you point out, the information has been mixed. There has been some evidence that the sodium warning labels have driven down rates of high blood pressure, and there's some evidence that, and this would include calorie posting, that people just go ahead and order what they usually order without paying attention to this. But the point here is that information enables people to use it. And without it, they don't even have that opportunity.
So let me ask you about why the sodium bill hasn't passed yet, because I see that it's been introduced in Albany every session since 2015 and hasn't passed. Who fights effectively against it? Is there a lobby group for big sodium?
Well, I don't know the specifics for the New York Act, but I can tell you that my experience in New York City is that big food is quite an adversary, much more powerful and with much more resources at their disposal than big tobacco. And they fought New York City on every single one of these bills. So, I expect that the basis of their contention will be much as it always was, that you're making us say things we don't want to say. And the other, that the federal guidance is enough for people. So I think that in general, the food industry has resisted these, and of course, predatory marketing would be a truly pioneering act, and I expect that would be contested. So while I can't tell you exactly what has happened in the New York State legislature, I would assume it's the same dynamics.
So you don't have a take on whether this year might be politically different to allow it to pass?
I would hope it is, because it's the right thing to do for public health. I think the measure that we should all use is whether these measures would advance public health. And it takes time. It took a while for the added sugar to be made into law in New York City. The state has the city to use as an example. It's not as though fast food chains have been driven out of business. So I'm hopeful that the legislature will act in the interests of New Yorkers. And I guess we haven't really mentioned this, but the adverse impact of too much salt, too much sugar, have been disproportionate. And that's why I wrote the letter to the caucuses of Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic.
I was just going to ask you about that because, yes, your letter was to the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus, urging them to prioritize this package of bills. So take us a little bit more into that, why it would be of particular public health interest to them.
Well, because of the excess burden of these preventable chronic diseases that are diet-related among people of color. So, for example, Black, Latino, and Asian New Yorkers are about twice as likely to have diabetes as white New Yorkers. So diabetes is too common, and it's become increasingly common, driven largely by the obesity epidemic, but it's disproportionately occurs among Blacks and Latinos. So that's why I'm hoping that these representatives, mindful of their constituencies and their obligation to protect them, will seize the moment and take these bills out of committee.
Do you have a take as a public health expert on why those diseases are more prevalent in those communities?
Well, there's a really substantially disproportionate marketing of these foods in these communities. When you think about it, fast food is often a good buy on a per calorie basis. There was a researcher at the University of Washington, and right now I just can't recall his name, but he told me made the statement that if you look at the weight distribution of your workforce, I'll tell you if they are making a living wage. So for low-income individuals, fast food may be a good buy. And people are not only pressed for money, they're pressed for time. And fast food is also, quick and easy after a long day to come home with already prepared food is increasingly a way people eat. We eat over half of our calories are from processed and prepared foods. So it's not only that it saves money, it saves time, and disproportionately these are factors that drive the lives of people of color.
We've been talking mostly about the warning label bills, right, for sugar and for sodium, but I want to make sure we give a few minutes to the third in this trio of bills that you're advocating for, the Predatory Marketing Prevention Act, because I could argue that this would be more important than the product labeling ones, because labeling puts responsibility on the individual when what would really matter is something more structural to limit the power of the fast food or processed food industry with all its saturation, advertising, and marketing clout that you referred to before. Do you think of this at all in that way?
Yes, absolutely. And I think of it as, as a good thing to have sodium information and the added sugar information, but this would really be an important way of protecting our children. Remember that people's eating habits are established fairly early in life, and so from early childhood, kids are bombarded with messages about fast foods and encouraged to pester their parents to consume, to let them eat fast foods, and this is disproportionately targeting Black children is what I have the data on, who are exposed to 75% more fast food ads than white children. So I think empowering the Attorney General to address this deceptive, youth-targeted marketing and hold companies accountable would be a terrific step forward in having a safer food supply.
Dr. Mary Bassett, public health physician, former New York City and New York State health commissioner, and professor of practice of health and human rights at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. She's been here to advocate for 3 bills before the New York State Legislature: the Sodium Warning Bill, the Sweet Truth Act, and the Predatory Marketing Prevention Act. Thank you so much for coming on again, Dr. Bassett.
Thanks for having me.
I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it. It said they were suckers. They wanted me for their army or whatever. Picture me giving a damn. I said never.
NPR has been documenting growing disquiet in the ranks of the U.S. military. Since President Trump began his second term, his use of the armed forces, both at home and abroad, has left some service members unsettled, demoralized, and the Iran war has made those feelings worse, as NPR's Kat Lonsdorf reports.
Bill Galvin has spent much of the past month answering the phone.
Good afternoon. Center on Conscience and War in the GI Rights Hotline. This is Bill.
Galvin is the counseling director at the Center on Conscience and War in Washington, D.C. The center helps run the 24-hour GI Rights Hotline, where service members can call in anonymously to talk through their options for discharge. Galvin says that since the U.S. and Israel launched the war against Iran at the end of February, it's been busy.
We're getting calls from people who are going to be deployed like within days or sometimes even the next day.
Galvin says most callers are asking how to apply to become a conscientious objector, a difficult, invasive, and rarely used process that requires a service member to demonstrate how their views on war have changed after they voluntarily enlisted. In March alone, the center took on more than 80 new clients interested in starting that process, almost twice as many as they take on in an average year. Those numbers are a drop in the bucket when compared to the more than 1.3 million people who serve. But the calls and conversations are an indication of disquiet within the ranks, feelings that have been growing over the past year.
When Iran hit, I think it was kind of like a detonator for all of those things that had been building.
Mike Preisner is the center's executive director and an Army veteran. He says in Trump's second term, calls have surged around specific moments, like when the National Guard and Marines were deployed to Los Angeles, or the ongoing U.S. strikes on boats in the Caribbean. But when the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran started, there was a significant increase, with people calling from across the ranks.
Maybe just as many officers as enlisted people. I mean, people who are in highly professional, highly accomplished fields.
But becoming a conscientious objector doesn't quite fit for many who call the hotline.
We've also had a lot of calls from people who don't identify as nonviolent or pacifists.
Steve Wolford is a resource counselor with Quaker House, which also helps run the hotline and provides counseling and support to service members who are questioning their role in the military.
They identify as like everyday service members who are willing to defend the country, but feel very unsettled and suspicious about the ways the military is being used now.
The calls to the GI Rights Hotline are part of a larger pattern of military members seeking ways to end their service, according to NPR interviews. Service members NPR talked to say they have seen undeniable cracks in the military's ability to retain troops, largely due to low morale or ethical concerns. One career counselor with the Army, who wasn't authorized to speak publicly, told NPR, quote, "Retention is the only thing holding the Army up from a metric standpoint, and it is crumbling fast." They said that the climate and cultural shifts within the military under this administration are the main reasons people are giving for leaving. When asked about retention, Pentagon Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson wrote in an email to NPR, quote, "There are zero retention concerns for fiscal year 2026. Every service is meeting its targets, and any suggestion otherwise is completely false." But experts say that any hard data on service members starting to leave now wouldn't show up for months or even years. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has also embarked on a systematic dismantling of DEI programs and major restructuring at the Pentagon. That upheaval sends a signal to upcoming talent, says Adam Weinstein of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft.
When you see chaos within the U.S. military to some degree, at least coming out of the Pentagon, what message does that send to the best and brightest who might want to make a career out of the U.S. military?
Corey Shockey of the conservative American Enterprise Institute says some of the turmoil stems from the Trump administration, quote, dragging the military into the culture wars. She pointed to the recent incident where Hegseth intervened to stop the promotions of 4 officers, 2 black and 2 female, to one-star generals.
It is not just women and people of color in the service who are feeling discouraged. It's people who wonder whether the military can preserve its inclusive meritocracy under the kind of political pressure that major politicians are putting it under.
Some military members are choosing to retire early or not to re-enlist when their contracts are up, according to those who spoke with NPR. Others are applying for medical separation or breaking their enlistment contracts regardless of the consequences.
I just don't believe in what the military stands for, what we're doing. I think we're on the wrong path.
This is a full-time member of the Ohio Air National Guard. He asked NPR not to use his name as he's currently looking to separate from the military and thinks talking to the press could make that more difficult. He says he'd been struggling with his role in the military, especially under the Trump administration, for months. But then 3 airmen from his base were among 6 killed in a refueling accident in Iraq in March during the Iran war.
I think it was the most angry I've ever felt in my life.
He says he decided then that he had to get out.
In that moment, I wanted nothing more than to just leave and wash my hands of that place and just be done.
He's been with the Guard for more than a decade and still has more than 2 years left on his contract. But he started applying to jobs outside the military. He says he doesn't know what the ramifications of that decision will be, but he's willing to deal with them, whatever they are. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Washington.
You're dirt. We think you're dirt, Paul.
Who is we?
The West, all the superpowers, everything you believe in, Paul. They think you're dirt. They think you're dumb. You're worthless.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you are saying, sir.
Oh, come on, don't bullshit me, Paul. You're the smartest man here. You got them all eating out of your hands. You could own this freaking hotel, except for one thing. You're black. You're not even a nigger. You're an African.
Hello and welcome. Let's begin with our top story. But let me ask you a question first. Do you know how big Africa actually is? Take a look at any regular world map hanging in a classroom or used by tech companies today. If you look closely, you'll see Greenland and Africa appearing to be roughly the same size. But that impression is far from the truth. In reality, Africa is about 14 times larger than Greenland. The debate over Africa's true size has been simmering for years, and now it's back in the spotlight. This time, Togo is leading the charge to make the world see the true giant that Africa is. This week, Togo's Foreign Minister Robert Dassi announced a new diplomatic mission to the United Nations. Tasked by the African Union, Togo is spearheading the African campaign, Correct the Map. The goal? To convince the UN member states to officially ditch the 16th century Mercator projection and to adopt a map that reflects the true size of the world's second largest continent. Now, Dassi said that a resolution is already being drafted for the next UN General Assembly in September.
Today, the challenge lies at the institutional level to secure a resolution from the United Nations General Assembly so that this map is also endorsed by the United Nations and by UNESCO, which is a United Nations agency, and that awareness-raising efforts are made so that in our schools, universities, secondary schools, and everywhere else, the infamous Mercator map is completely removed from our geography textbooks, and that the true map reflecting the actual size of Africa, and I repeat, this is the equal Earth map, is taught.
Togo isn't alone in this. It has the full backing of the African Union's 55 member states. They want the world to accept the equal Earth map, a projection created in 2018 that gives Africa its due space. So how did we get it so wrong for so long? It all goes back to Flemish geographer Gerardus Mercator. Now, in 1569, he created a map designed for navigation. It was great for sailors because it kept directions straight, but it had a massive drawback. It had distorted the size of land masses. The further you get from the equator, the bigger things look. Now, this is why North America and Europe look massive, while Africa and South America, which are right in the middle, look shrunken. So, on the Mercator map, Greenland and Africa look identical in size. But in reality, you could fit the US, China, India, and most of Europe inside Africa and still have room left. Togo is clear in its approach. Correct the Map campaign isn't a political attack. It's a scientific correction.
From a historical perspective and from a geographical perspective, this struggle is not directed against anyone. It is not directed against any state, nor is it directed against any individual. It is a struggle for humanity. It is a struggle for science. Therefore, former colonial powers should have every interest in supporting this African Union initiative today because it is a scientific truth.
But why does this matter? It's just a map, right? No, it is more than that. Maps aren't just drawings. They are projections of power and influence. When a continent is shrunken on paper, it is often shrunken in the minds of policymakers, investors, and students. For centuries, the Mercator map has reinforced a narrative of Africa's marginality. It makes a vast, resource-rich, and highly populated continent look like a footnote at the bottom of the globe. By correcting the map, Africa is demanding to be seen as what it truly is. This campaign is about decolonizing the classrooms and ensuring that the next generation sees the world as it actually is. The road ahead to the UN could be tricky. Just last month, an Africa-led resolution calling for reparations for slavery faced pushback from European countries, Britain and the US. Togo has said that it will be closely watching who will stand with science and who will vote against the facts when September comes. Because at the end of the day, Africa is a giant, and it's high time we start drawing it like one.
Tell me who paid reparation on my soul.
Our next story sits at the intersection of history, money, and politics. A $1 trillion debate, long avoided in Paris, is now suddenly back on the table. Ghana says France is now open to discussion, with a coalition of countries calling for reparations linked to the transatlantic slave trade. The development follows a high-level meeting in Paris between President John Mahama and President Emmanuel Macron. Ghana's foreign minister described the talks as a breakthrough. In a post on X, he stated that France signaled an openness to discussions covering reparations, the return of looted artifacts, and addressing structural global inequalities. But French officials quickly clarified the subject of the meeting. They said that talks were primarily focused on cultural restitution and the legal framework around returning artifacts and human remains. So even at the diplomatic level, the definition of reparations is already contested. To understand why this matters now, you have to look at the wider global moment. Just weeks ago, in March, the United Nations adopted a resolution led by Ghana, officially recognizing the transatlantic slavery as the gravest crime against humanity.
We have affirmed that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and their racialized chattel enslavement is the gravest crime against humanity. This resolution is not about apportioning blame across generations or nations. It is not about reopening old wounds. It is about ensuring that those wounds are neither forgotten nor denied.
France, along with 25 other EU countries, abstained from that vote. Officials said they rejected the idea of creating what they call a hierarchy of crimes. But behind closed doors, the diplomatic tone appears to be shifting, because France is facing a changing reality in Africa. Military governments in the Sahel have pushed French forces out. Anti-French sentiment has risen sharply across several regions, and Paris is now trying to manage a relationship that is weakening on multiple fronts. On Monday, the French Parliament passed a bill designed to simplify the return of African artifacts taken during the colonial era. As of today, France still holds tens of thousands of artworks and cultural objects removed during the colonial rule. Until now, each item required individual parliamentary approval, one by one. The new law changes that. It creates a single legal pathway for restitution covering objects taken between 1815 and 1972. Countries, including Algeria, Mali, and Benin, are among those continuing to press claims. Now, this is not entirely a new policy. In 2017, President Emmanuel Macron pledged in Burkina Faso to reshape France's post-colonial relationship with Africa. Since then, there have been selective returns. A talking drum was returned to Ivory Coast in 2025, and 26 royal treasures were sent back to Benin in 2021. But the deeper question is no longer about individual objects. It is about what those objects represent. Is a drum or a statue enough to account for the trafficking of more than 1.3 million people? Some African economists argue the broader historical debt runs far deeper. The Battle Group has estimated that the value of slavery's economic impact could exceed $100 trillion. Now, no one expects a check of that scale, but the political argument is shifting toward debt relief and structural correction. African officials say Western nations cannot ask African nations to pay them interest on loans when they have built their empire on stolen labor from Africa. And that argument is now being carried forward into the language of policy and economics. In Ghana, the pressure is being built through diplomacy and international law. In Paris, the response is being shaped through legislation and controlled legal framework. Now, one is pushing the question forward, the other is defining the limits of the answer. And that gap between pressure and control is where the future of this debate will be decided.
The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness, by Michelle Alexander.
A Georgia sheriff says he's using a first-of-its-kind drone system to keep other drones from carrying contraband into the jail he runs. It's one way police across the country are trying to plug safety gaps, but critics warn that the new jail drone could lead to mass surveillance. From member station WABE in Atlanta, here's Shemaine Cruz.
A drone that can record audio and video is docked on the roof of Atlanta's Fulton County Jail, ready to take off anywhere within a 4-mile radius.
This has been certainly the bane of some of our existence.
That's Fulton County Sheriff Patrick Labatt at a recent event showcasing the technology. He says almost 300 drone flights were spotted over his jail's airspace in the first half of 2025, and that most of those were delivering what he calls contraband.
We've had everything from chicken sandwiches to cigarettes to really just tools to take the jail apart.
Labatt says he's seen drones fly across the perimeter to deliver items directly to people in jail through holes in windows. In some prisons, drones deliver drugs, weapons, and cell phones.
Now, if it were up to me, I'd take a shotgun and I'd shoot them all down, right? I'd climb up top of the roof, but certainly we can't do that right now.
That's because federal law limits state and local officials' ability to detect and stop drone threats. Nearly 24 state attorneys general, including Georgia's, recently sent a letter to the Trump administration aiming to change that. But for now, private companies are stepping up to offer support.
Working a facility like this is not easy.
That's Garrett Langley, CEO of Atlanta-based Flock Safety, which is supplying the jail drone. He says he hopes it'll be the first of many.
For the sheriff, drones can become a force multiplier, increasing safety for both the deputies and the individuals who are here in custody.
Some other law enforcement agencies are already using drones to help with emergency calls, but Langley says he wants his to help catch the suspects behind contraband drops. The drone at the jail can arrive at a security breach within 85 seconds, way faster than it would take deputies. And Flock says half a dozen deputies have been trained as drone operators. Problem is, critics don't share their excitement. Christopher Bruce is with the ACLU of Georgia.
It's not just going to be at a jail.
In fact, the sheriff says he ultimately wants to expand to position 19 drones around the county to do things like check that registered sex offenders are where they should be. But Bruce says a drone with eyes in the sky should concern everyone in the surrounding area.
When you put up a camera, that camera is not just going to pick up a specific target. Anybody that walks by a camera could be held and their data could be held for whatever reason.
Flock has come under fire over its automatic license plate readers. The technology is popular with police for helping solve crimes, but some cities have ditched it over fears that local data could be used to aid federal immigration efforts. The sheriff didn't address those concerns, but he says his new jail drone is, quote, not a Big Brother situation. For NPR News, I'm Shemaine Cruz in Atlanta.
A shocking incident of racism has sparked outrage in New Zealand. A hateful message reading, "Kill all Indians," was discovered outside a school in Auckland, triggering concern among residents and inside the Indian community. The graffiti was found near a school and was quickly reported and removed. Indian community leaders and politicians have strongly condemned the act, calling for swift action. Here's our report.
New Zealand is again in the spotlight for racist incidents against people of Indian origin. The latest message, reading "Kill all Indians," was discovered on a footpath outside Papatoetoe Central School in Auckland on Saturday. The impact of the message has lingered, especially among families and students in the area. New Zealand police have confirmed that an investigation is underway. Officials say that the case is being treated as a hate-motivated incident, with efforts focused on identifying those responsible.
We recognize this will be concerning, and we are focused on identifying those responsible.
The school has also strongly condemned the incident. The principal said that the teachers and the authorities were deeply saddened and that there is no place for racism in New Zealand. This has left parents, especially those coming from the Indian diaspora, in fear about the safety of their children. Meanwhile, the timing of the incident has also raised questions. It came just a day after local board election developments in Papatoetoe, where members of a team made up of Indian New Zealanders were re-elected following a court-ordered rerun of voting. The group had earlier faced unfounded allegations on social media linking them to voter fraud, despite no evidence. The incident has also drawn sharp political reaction. Indian origin Member of Parliament Parmjeet Parmar called the graffiti vile and cowardly. She urged authorities to act swiftly and said that such threats were deeply hurtful to a community that makes significant contributions to New Zealand's economy and society. But this incident did not happen in isolation. It comes amid reports of rising anti-Indian sentiment in New Zealand. In recent months, there have been instances of harassment and protests targeting South Asian communities. In December last year, a Sikh religious procession in South Auckland was disrupted by a group of protesters linked to a Christian organization. The group performed a haka and shouted slogans such as "This is New Zealand, not India," while attempting to block the parade. Data from police has also shown that people of South Asian descent are among the most targeted groups in racial abuse cases. In the end, this is not just about a piece of graffiti, but about the safety, dignity and inclusion of communities that call New Zealand home and have been contributing to its economy.
I can feel it deep inside, this black nigger's pride. I have no fear when I say, and I say it every day, every nigger is a star. Every nigger is a star. Who will deny that you and I and every nigga is a star?
Justice was getting served, and my family and my friends were safe.
A Danville alderman says he and two others were victims of a hate crime, and now 2 men are being charged with attempted murder. Good evening. I'm Kelly Finley.
And I'm Jennifer Roscoe. We are getting new details in a case we've been following since it happened almost 2 weeks ago. The information came out in Edgar County Court, where brothers Jordan Coleman and Jesse Coleman made their first appearance since getting arrested. Jaden Reynolds was also arrested and will be in court next week. WCIA3's Tyler Hill was also there this afternoon and is now live in Paris. Tyler, tell us what you learned.
Jennifer, I'm here where police say it all started at White Oaks Park. They say that this happened April 3rd. And today in court, the Edgar County State's Attorney's Office broke down everything that happened that night, starting at around 11. They say 3 men, including Danville Alderman Jalil Jones and his friends Tajon King and Dwayne Williams, were all fishing on the lake. The suspects pulled up in a truck. The State's Attorney's Office says those suspects had been drinking that night. Prosecutors say the 3 men surrounded and started to harass Jones, King, and Williams, calling them racial slurs. The victims tried to leave, but Jordan Coleman is accused of firing a shotgun into the air with his brother encouraging him. Then he's accused of pointing the gun at King, saying, quote, "I'm going to blow your head off." That's when King pulled out his legally owned handgun and fired at Jordan, hitting him 3 times. Jordan was taken to a hospital. I talked to Jones after court today to see how he was feeling with many friends and family by his side.
It felt real good to have people, you know, in my corner, backing me and supporting me, and even the people of Paris were supporting me and backing me, and just happy that I was here.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
6, a Jacksonville family says they feel unsafe in their home after they say their neighbor pulled a gun on their children. Action News Jack spoke with a father who says his kids were playing outside last night in Dinsmore when a neighbor started shouting racial slurs through their fence. And from there, he says the confrontation quickly escalated and it resulted in the neighbor's arrest. Action News Jack's Casey Stone live outside of where it took place. And Casey, the father tells you that the children were present during all of this. 10 children.
Yes, Darius Brock said that those children were between the ages of 5 and 11, and all of them are left feeling incredibly traumatized from this incident.
Wait, hold on, did he just call us the? Yes, he racist. Bro, I am racist.
Just before 8 p.m. last night, Darius Brock says he was home watching TV when his 10-year-old son ran into a house in a panic.
My son came in and said an older guy, our neighbor, was screaming at them and called them the N-word.
On the other side of this fence, Brock says the neighbor spewed racial slurs at his 6 children and another neighbor's 4 kids while they all played football behind Brock's house. Brock and his wife went to talk to the neighbor, and that's when he says the neighbor pulled out a gun and pointed it directly at him and the kids, including at his 10-year-old son, Milo.
We all ran and we ran away, and my dad was helping us jump the fence, and we just went home and we was hiding.
We now know that this neighbor is 40-year-old James O'Neal. He was arrested by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office last night following the incident. Police records show that he's being charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without intent to kill. Brock says that they've been living here for almost a year and that this is the first interaction they've had with him.
They were in tears, crying all night. My kids, they could barely sleep. Like it just traumatized them.
I'm scared still because I don't know if he's gonna try to do something.
We checked the jail logs and O'Neal remains in custody at this time. For local coverage you can count on in Densmore, Casey Stone, Action News.
About as funny as a lynching.
Oh, hush, boy, you ain't even see it.
I've never seen a lynching either, but I know they not funny.
See, shows what you know. I've seen funny lynchings.
No, you haven't.
I have so. Roscoe Patterson's lynching was funny. Yeah, so them niggas was like, Roscoe, you better leave town for Mr. Charlie and them crackers gonna fall for you. I'm like, man, fuck these crackers, man. This Roscoe Patterson. Nigga, I don't give a fuck. I just don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? White man can eat a dick. Eat my balls, nigga. There he is. Get that nigger. Oh. Come on, let's go. Oh, geez. Watch out. It wasn't really funny after that.
I'm your Cascade neighborhood reporter, Cassandra Alonso. A man is now facing a felony hate crime charge after deputies say a confrontation in a grocery store parking lot last month turned into threats and intimidation. This happened at the Oldie on 28th Street Southeast, and according to court documents, it escalated quickly. According to the affidavit, deputies identified the suspect as Randall Miller. The victim told deputies as she was pulling in, the suspect cut her off and then started yelling racial slurs while she was still inside of her car. In the document, she says Miller repeatedly used racial slurs and referenced hanging black people from trees, which she said made her fear the situation could turn physical. She told deputies Miller was hitting the side of her car, speaking loudly and demanding she get out of the car. The second person, who was on the phone with the victim at the time, told deputies she heard the incident, describing his tone as aggressive and intimidating. Miller acknowledged making offensive statements, according to court documents, saying he was trying to get a reaction. According to the complaint, Miller is charged with a felony hate crime, specifically making a true threat, which carries a possible penalty of up to 2 years in prison and or a $5,000 fine. The case is now moving through the court system. I'm Cassandra Alonso, your Cascade reporter, Fox 17 News.
The Coroner's Silence, Death Records and the Hidden Victims of Police Violence by Terrence Keel. For all of the misremembered victims of police violence.
From KCTV5, this is breaking news.
In breaking news at 6, a federal lawsuit filed today against Wyandotte County and the sheriff after an in-custody death.
50-year-old Charles Adair died at the county jail in July of 2025. His family is claiming negligence and wrongful death. The man charged with unintentional but reckless second-degree murder, Richard Fatherly, is named in the suit. He's the detention officer accused of kneeling on Adair's back, leading to his death. He is currently on unpaid administrative leave, but has never been arrested for this charge. Now, the lawsuit comes after a KCTV5 investigation last month into the incident.
KCTV5 investigative reporter Samantha Boring joins us now in the newsroom to break it down. And Samantha, the lawsuit includes findings that you uncovered in your reporting.
Yeah, Brad, Lauren, we'll get to that in just a second. And in this 19-page federal complaint, the family feels Wyandotte County, the sheriff, detention officer Richard Fatherly, and 5 unidentified sheriff's deputies played some role that led to the in-custody death of Charles Adair. The family alleges deputies used excessive force on Charles Adair during the altercation before his death. They feel other deputies didn't step in to stop what was happening. They accuse the sheriff and the county of not properly training or supervising jail staff. And they feel the defendant's actions were negligent. There's also a mention of Richard Fatherly's email access. KCTV5 Investigates first reported on this last month that he's kept access to his county email account since being charged and put on leave. Since then, he has offered to work and talk to witnesses listed by the state via that email account. According to the complaint, it states Fatherly having this email access is, quote, in violation of Defendant Unified Government's policies and procedures. The records do not say what specific policies and procedures were violated. I've reached out to Wyandotte County, the sheriff's office, and Fatherly's attorney. All say they do not have any comment right now for this story. This was just filed today in federal court, so a court hearing has not been set. As for Fatherly's criminal case, his hearing next week has been continued to May 20th. Live in the newsroom, Samantha Boring, KCTV5 Investigates.
That if you want ultimate expression of white supremacy and the white supremacist mentality, and you want to put it in the form of one person that I would name, and that's something I very seldom do, it would be Jeffrey Dahmer. He's the ultimate expression of white supremacy. Everything that he was doing, working in a chocolate factory, the whole 9 yards, storing black male bodies in canisters of lye and alcohol and whatnot, got them in the refrigerator, and cannibalism, and all of that. And calm, very methodical. Even when questioned by the law enforcement officers, very calm. Hannibal Lecter.
Frozen femurs in the freezer. Jeffrey Dahmer.
And now the details on the investigation into the death of Ashley Robinson. Her family is demanding answers after the influencer from South Jersey was found dead during a trip to Africa where she had just been engaged. Action News reporter Cheyenne Corinne joining us live in the Satellite Center with more on this heartbreaking story. Cheyenne.
Alicia, well, Ashley Robinson, she actually was raised locally in South Jersey, and now her death in Zanzibar is making headlines across the world. Well, today we spoke to her family in Delaware, who say they aren't getting answers from her fiance or officials in Tanzania about what happened to her.
Uncertainty, mystery, anger, sadness. It's like a part of me has been taken away.
On April 5th, influencer Ashley Robinson, who goes by Ashley Janae on social media, was celebrating her 31st birthday in Zanzibar, Tanzania. She was on the vacation with her boyfriend of 1 year, who popped the question just 2 days before.
We believe that they were in love. We believe that their relationship was genuine.
Ashley's mother says she never would have expected that less than a week later, her daughter would be dead. On April 8th, she says Ashley called, saying she and her fiance got into an argument and were moved to separate rooms. The next day, she received another call, this time from her fiance.
He told me that Ashley did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital. I said, what happened when? And he told me it had been 11 hours prior.
Hours later, the luxury hotel the couple was staying at called saying Ashley passed away. According to the hospital's medical report, Ashley had an unidentified mark around her neck. They wrote, quote, according to the husband, he found she hanged herself on the door with several question marks.
Sometime Jill went back to the room with security, and that's how they found her.
Ashley was also taken to a second hospital who listed her cause of death as cerebral hypoxia by strangulation and suffocation.
She's never done anything that would ever lead me to believe that she would do something to harm herself.
She was not just going to be discarded and forgotten about.
And the family, as you just heard, they are just desperate for information. They tell us that they are requesting surveillance footage from the resort. They also say that they have contacted police, the consulate, and embassy and have not heard back. No Action News, we also tried to contact Ashley's fiance, and we also did not get a response. The family says their next steps are going to Zanzibar themselves to try to get answers. We're live in the Satellite Center. Cheyenne Corinne, Channel 6. Action News, Rick.
All right, Cheyenne, thank you for that report.
Former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax is dead. Fairfax County Police confirming he died in a murder-suicide at his home in Annandale. These are live pictures of the scene from Chopper 4. News 4 was on the scene overnight after someone inside the home called 911. Fairfax was once a rising star among Democrats. He was poised to become Virginia's next governor until two women accused him of sexual assault. He denied the accusations and was never charged. We are working for you this morning with live team coverage. Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Julie Carey is speaking to people who knew Fairfax best, but we begin with News 4's Megan McGrath and the investigation. Megan, what have police told you?
Well, just a terrible situation here. And if you look behind me, you can see the police are still here on the scene. Just about an hour ago or so, the bodies were removed from the home. Now, former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and his wife Cerina shared this home in Annandale with their two teenage children. But according to court documents and police, the marriage was falling apart. Last night, things came to a head when Justin Fairfax shot and killed his wife and then turns the gun on himself. The couple's two children were home when it happened. It was their son that made the 911 call. Police came to the home on Guinevere Drive following a 911 call from a child inside the house. He told the dispatcher that he thought his father may have stabbed his mother and that she was bleeding, and he did not know where his father was. As the investigation unfolded, police quickly realized that the couple involved was former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and his wife, Cerina. and that the weapon involved was a gun, not a knife.
I'm here to confirm the identity of our shooter in this murder-suicide that happened several hours ago as former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. Former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax shot and killed his wife inside of their home and then shot and killed himself.
Justin Fairfax served as Lieutenant Governor of Virginia from 2018 to 2022. He and his wife Cerina have 2 children together. They are now teenagers. It was their son that called 911 at around midnight. According to court records, the Fairfaxes were in the process of getting a divorce.
Former Lieutenant Governor Fairfax was recently served some paperwork associated with an upcoming court proceeding that apparently led to this incident last night. Both of their children, teenagers, the boys older than the girl, were in the house when it happened. So that's horrible news for the family. Certainly a traumatic event for those children to live through.
Asked if the police had been called to the house for any previous domestic calls, Police Chief Kevin Davis recounted an incident that happened back in January.
Mr. Fairfax calls the police and alleges that his wife assaulted him. We responded to that scene. There are several cameras set up inside the house. Apparently, Mrs. Fairfax, at some point during these divorce proceedings, set up a lot of cameras inside the home. We reviewed those cameras, and we corroborated that the alleged assault never occurred.
And again, the Fairfaxes' 2 teenage children were inside the home at the time that this happened. They were not physically hurt, but certainly traumatized by what transpired here. And again, it was the son who made that 911 call. Now, Justin Fairfax at one point was a rising star in the Democratic Party here in Virginia, and then things began to unravel for him. So, Julie Carey, we're going to turn to you for that part of the story.
Yeah, Megan, I covered Justin Fairfax for years. In fact, even doing an interview with him once right on this block. And like Megan said, when he was elected lieutenant governor in 2007, he was viewed as a young, new star in the Democratic Party in Virginia. He became just the second African-American to be elected statewide office in Virginia. And even then, he clearly had his sights set on the next step on becoming governor. But his political ambitions were derailed in 2009 when first one woman, then another came forward accusing the lieutenant governor of sexually assaulting them some 2 decades before that when he was a young man. Now, Fairfax adamantly denied the allegations, calling those interactions consensual. Fellow lawmakers, including some high-profile Democrats at the time, called for him to step down. But Fairfax refused, and he continued to make the case he had been falsely accused. He was never charged in that case, but the allegations, they doomed his political future. He did try to run for governor. He was in the Democratic primary in 2013, but he finished a distant fourth to Terry McAuliffe, who went on to win that election. Fairfax then came back to this community and returned to practicing law after that. I've spoken and texted with several of his friends today. They are understandably shocked by this murder-suicide. Several of them have issued statements. I'm going to tell you about a few of those. This comes from former Governor Ralph Northam, who served alongside Fairfax when he was lieutenant governor. He writes, "Pam and I are devastated by this heartbreaking news. I had the privilege of getting to know the Fairfaxes while our families served together. We're praying for the entire Fairfax family during this incredibly difficult time." And from Democratic House Speaker Don Scott, "I'm heartbroken by the deeply disturbing reports emerging this morning. This is an unspeakable tragedy, and our hearts are with the family, especially the children and loved ones whose lives have been forever changed by this devastating loss. There are moments when words fall short, and this is one of them. All we can do is pray, hold our loved ones closer, and grieve alongside those who are hurting today." And we've also just in the past half hour heard from a childhood friend, Kenyon McDuffie, a former D.C. council member. He grew up alongside Justin Fairfax when Fairfax's family was in Washington, D.C. He writes, "I'm heartbroken beyond words. The bond between our families is one I've always carried with me, and today that bond is breaking under the weight of an unthinkable loss. And, of course, all these condolences recognizing the loss of Justin Fairfax's wife, Cerina, who was a well-known dentist in the community. We're also hearing from Senators Warner and Cade, who issued a joint statement expressing some of the same sentiments that you're hearing in these other statements with, particular concern for these children who now have lost their parents. So certainly, Juliana, a shockwave that extends all across the Commonwealth, both to political leaders and to the many people who knew and supported Justin Fairfax over the years. Back to you now in the studio.
Yeah, just such a horrific situation. Julie Carey, live for us. Thank you so much. Now, if you or someone you know is in crisis, call 9888 or go to 988lifeline.org to reach the 988 Suicide and Crisis Line. You can also visit speakingofsuicide.com/resources for additional help.
Context of White Supremacy. Condolences to the Fairfax family. Former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. Wife, dentist, black dentist. I need a black dentist. Dr. Cerina Fairfax. Found by the children. Devastating. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Now, I mean, that is what has been reported. That's what we have been told, if that is true. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing did say frequently, victims of white supremacy, people classified as black, do not qualify for mental health. Found by the children. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade, Worthless Negro from Virginia, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, April 18, 2026. So I have been told. This is our weekly counter-racist weekly review. We will be here tomorrow, April 19, McVeigh Day. Same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Gus T will take time to review the contents of the FBI files on Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Try to go over as much detail as possible in terms of what they reveal. Some of the details about, I think I've said before, every victim of white supremacy, individual classified as black, should file a Freedom of Information request. We should all do it. One of the main things race soldiers do, master deceivers, concealing constructive information and lying about things. So we should always be in the business of acquiring accurate information. So definitely, now, absolutely, we should all file a Freedom of Information request, at least one per year. Before I had just said, we should do one in our lifetime at some point on the plantation with as much information as white people lie about and hide and keep from us. We should file at least one Freedom of Information request per year. And that can be, the FBI, your local police, because, it's lots of goon and racist activity right there, too. So there should definitely be there should be something. There should be at least one thing, if you are a victim of white supremacy, that you are curious about. And in particular, there should be at least one, like something constructive, like not how to obtain cocaine or, cheat female out of some money or something crazy, something constructive. We should be curious about that. And that could be a person, that could be an event, something as a victim of white supremacy that we are curious about, and in particular something that white people are trying to keep information from us. That would be my suggestion. I said, hey, we should read at least one nonfiction book per year, and then there should be one Freedom of Information request per year. Might go a long way to us replacing white supremacy with justice immediately. But we will do it up tomorrow. Even that's so important. I'll go into detail about that tomorrow, but it's so important because now I don't know, we're all talking about race soldiers, master deceivers. I checked. I did not see public files, FBI files on Dr. Welsing. I have been told the procedure works if you have a popular figure, let's say Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., not that Dr. Welsing wasn't, but I'm just saying, you have a really popular figure like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they have lots of his files are online because lots of people all over the world make requests to get those files and have for many, 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 many years and have written books about them and such. So he has a lot of files online already. Dr. King, Malcolm X as well. I didn't see that for Dr. Welsing. She's been deceased now for 10 years. Now, really, hey, shame on you, Gus. And really all of us should have filed that FOIA request. She died at the beginning of 2016. Like, even let's give you 2 months to mourn and pout and get it together. Okay, by April, request should have been filed. Okay, valid. At minimum, if they say, hey, at minimum 2017, why didn't you file it then? Hey. Everybody sat around and whined and pouted. I won't say everybody, but many during the Rona. Can't go nowhere. Gotta wear a mask. Tired of watching TV. We could have filed a Freedom of Information request, get Dr. Welsing's records. She'd been deceased then. No excuse then. True. That's all I could say. True. You lollygagged for a decade? Yeah. So you got any excuses? You been doing the cows? You got any excuse? What's the excuse? Hadn't thought of filing a Freedom of Information. Really? I hadn't thought. You think they got an FBI file on Dr. Welsing? I just don't remember having, I would have said duh, of course, but I wouldn't have yeah, and we should try to get that. It just did not pop into my brain computer. Now, even, I think it was after Bill Russell died where I said we should all file a Freedom of Information request. And that was the first one where I said, hey, I should do that too. And even that, I failed. I was going and trying to find the information and just got distracted about, other things at that time period. But I said, man, and I saw someone had already filed it. I got lazy. I said, they filed it, so it should be public, which I have to see. Sometimes they will make it public, sometimes they don't. But it should be, or the rules, as I understand them, if they have a large number of people make a request for an individual, the files are supposed to be public. Did they not have a large number of people make a request for Dr. Welsing's file? Maybe lots of people were like me and just really didn't think, yes, I know Dr. Welsing has a file. We should request it. Either way, the file, she does have an FBI file, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, and really, all of us should maybe request that file because white people at the Bureau are notorious. Maybe I make a request and get 30 records. Maybe you make a request, you get 31 records. Maybe Timmy makes a request, Timmy gets 40 records. Sheila makes a request. She gets 15 records, but her 15 are different from the ones we got. That type of thing. Like and the bigger point of all this, which is one of the big points for tomorrow, this should be public. She was a public figure. She traveled all over the world. She was on television. She did programs, radio programs and such all over the world. This should be public. People, purchased her book and still purchase her book, did so for decades. This should be public. It should not be where you have to go through all that cumbersome, each individual has to go through all that cumbersome paper filing or you got to go and write it out on paper, mail it in, snail mail, and do all that. Man, come on. And it takes a lot of time and everything. This should be public. Really should have been public because she passed away so long ago. So we'll do it up tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. What did Gus T get in Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's FBI files? COINTELPRO indeed, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. But that is one of the major points that I will say, man, everybody should do one FOIA request per year. And if you haven't done one this year, that's your one. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. And then they'll be public, so it'll be easy. And then henceforth, maybe all the records will be, publicly available for everybody, and that will be that. But wow, that, that was quite a pleasant distraction in the middle of the week. Focus on constructive things. Let us see. If you have thoughts, observations, maybe you did your own FOIA request this week and have things to share. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. That I will take this moment to repeat for some time. I have been saying there's no reason I should have to beg to talk to victims of white supremacy. For sure, there is no reason I should have to beg to talk to any victim of white supremacy. I could be filing FOIA requests. Please. Let's see. Tidbits from what happened over the past 7 days or so with the news. The first segment that we heard on Dave Chappelle and him investing to keep the public radio station rolling in his native Ohio and him managing the building. Wow, that is wild. They didn't even intend for black people to be a part of radio, and all in all, he's managing the building. Wow. Quite a statesman, Dave Chappelle, victim of white supremacy. He was being interviewed on NPR by Michelle Martin, black female victim of white supremacy. I did think it was significant because she was questioning him about his so-called LGBTQ comedy routine. And you've got a black female questioning Dave Chappelle about, these so-called harmful jokes and should he be doing them. I'm trying to think, does Michelle Martin, does she interview any white people, white comedians, or just a white person in general, and question them about conduct that they engage in that's racist, harmful? Why are you doing this? Should you not? Now, she's done a lot of interviews. I'd have to go back and track the record, but I'd be very curious to see if she gets to question a white person about their harmful conduct as a racist. Just asking a question. They spoke with Dr. Mary Bassett, former health commissioner in New York City, and they were talking about the efforts to pass all of these junk food markers. So they restrict the predatory advertising and put these big notifications on the food and such, like, whoa, don't eat this. It's got a whole lot of sugar in it. Whoa, don't eat that. It's got a whole lot of salt, and you don't want to get all that diabetes and all the rest of it. Like, wow. That, and they said to put it, make it really flagrant, so that you can't be targeting folks. And these are at chain restaurants, cracking down on junk food advertisements and all the rest of it. I thought that was so important for so many reasons. I'm curious because I don't think I heard it in that report. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. The new mayor of New York City, is he on board with the junk food information markers and restricting these predatory advertisements to children? Is he in support of doing this, Mayor Mamdani? Has he taken a stance publicly on this? Does anyone know? I'd be very interested about that. But man, that I thought was so important, and that's one of those I don't care. Now they had a caller who dialed in a little bit later to say that people need a certain amount of literacy to use this information. You have a lot of folks who don't read the best. They might see this, not pay attention to it, or continue on. That is very true. But she said, hey, at least having the information there and in a very visible manner, at least that is the beginnings of us being able to make more informed choices about what we put in our mouth. Facts. And I thought that was so important for so many reasons, especially with regards to counter-racism, dare I say, the number of times that I hear non-white people classified as black, who talk about firearms and let's go to the gun range and do some shooting. I think the diet component is more important than us going to do some shooting. You eat every day, many times a day. Even the thuggiest of thugged out black person that I know, they generally do not shoot every day. Leroy and Gus T get on your nerves, but I mean, dang, that's not a every day and much less multiple times a day shooting event. I might have to shoot a coon once or twice a month, but dang, every day? I humbly submit we do a little more eating than we do shooting at this juncture. That being said, and the food, the plate, as you just heard, they said, boy, the food industry, they got more muscle than the tobacco industry. I said, whoa, is that true? Wait a minute, what now? What? Your plate, that is the counter-racism battlefield. That's the way that you should think of it. As I've been saying, and we've had the guests. It's not like this, we just been up here doing nothing. Dr. Ruby Lathan, many-time guest on the program. Judith Finlayson, You Are What Your Grandparents Ate. She was a guest on the program. Tremendous book, right in the middle of the Rona. Not medical apartheid, even though that is great. Harriet A. Washington, A Terrible Thing to Waste. She talks about diet as being an important component of how we get a lot of the poisons in our diet that impact our brain computer. Lots of, I hope, important information about food and correct eating and how that is a massive component of counter-racism. And she said in that report, Dr. Bassett, that I think over 50% of our calories come from all that prepared and ultra-processed foods. McDonald's, Burger King, get the onion rings, and all of that madness. That is, and then she said it, diabetes running rampant, hypertension, obesity, all of that running rampant, childhood obesity. All of that running rampant, so much of that. Now, again, the system of white supremacy, racism is the culprit. I thought that was, I wish she had remembered, because she said it was a University of Washington research. And I was like, what? Who? Maybe I saw him this week. Who? And she said she forgot the person's name. It's like, oh man, I'm going to have to go and look if I find her or him or whoever, see if I can track him down. But she said they told her, Husky scholar, that if I look at your workforce, I can look at their weight and body mass And I can tell if they are receiving correct compensation, living wage, as they call it. Wow. Wow. That's why I said, like, who said this? Is there a report, a book on this? Like, whoa. That is an indictment of white supremacy, racism. Like I said, now, they will subsidize. You can go to McDonald's and get all the, salty, fatty cheeseburgers and French fries and light that dollar menu up. You try and go somewhere and see if you can get organic kale for $1. That's not spoiled and about as floppy as your shoelace. You try and go and see if you can get organic Brussels sprouts on the dollar menu. The purple broccoli, organic. See if you get that on the dollar menu. Matter of fact, hey, there's Brother Gus T. What you eat today? You gonna do all this running off at the gums about the food and diet? What you eat today? I literally just finished wipe my mouth. I had my strawberry banana peanut butter smoothie, all organic, fresh ginger, organic, and even a hint of vanilla, organic. That has a massive, and you get all that fiber. That is massive, and no warning on anything I ate. Why is that? Because I could say what I just said was the ingredient. Strawberries, organic. Banana, organic. Oat milk, organic. Peanut butter, organic. Ain't no ginger, organic. Ain't no packaging on that, so ain't no label. That's one of the things that they say over and over again. Once you start getting away from those ultra-processed foods, you prepare your own foods, you don't have to do all that label reading. Ain't no label. You go to the produce aisle, ain't no labels. Real easy. Now, if you illiterate, you don't have, I forgot my glasses, I don't like doing all that reading. Hey, just go to the produce aisle. You can skip all of that. Oh, wait a minute. That's not all I had to eat. So I had my smoothie. I had my kale sweet tater salad. Oh, I love this stuff. They have it at one of the grocery stores that I shop at. They've had this stuff, and I had never looked at the recipes. Like, wait a minute. Do they have? Oh, my God. It's like the same thing I just said. When you go to the produce, what did I say? Kale sweet tater salad. If those are going to be the dominant ingredients, ain't no label on that neither. And it was delicious. I was even going to add in the day I got those Dr. Welsing FBI files. That was Thursday. Man, I was so scatterbrained because I got them. I was like, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to come so fast. And it took me a while to calm myself so I could go read them. My dinner, I had my leftover pad thai vegan that I made and my leftover veggie lasagna. It was so great, and that's so mismatched, but it was so good. I cannot say enough. Cooking for yourself, especially cooking healthy things that will not kill you and are not overloaded with salt, sugar, ultra-processed ingredients, red dye number 4, high fructose corn syrup, white sugar, all of that garbage to absolutely kill us and destroy your brain computer. All those chemicals too, organic, because I said organic, right? Like repeated, I had organic kale, organic sweet taters. Try to lighten the chemical load. Harriet A. Washington talked about that. I keep saying medical apartheid, which is brilliant, but a terrible thing to waste. She talked about that specifically, and specifically for black people, that they load us up with all those chemicals, and that's one thing we can do for counter racism. For Freddie Gray, I'm not going to ingest any extra chemicals. And I said that's the exact way I would explain it if I did have children. I don't, thank God for them and I. But if I did, that's how I would explain it. Now, if they were sprinkling in their flavor, I don't want to eat that. I don't want no Brussels sprouts. You eat the worst food. I'm going to go to McDonald's. Hey, that is exactly what your friend Whitey, that's what he wants you to eat. And I would say now, look who goes to, let's just do an experiment. Look at the people who eat at McDonald's. And this is not generalizing or hating or anything, but just, do they look healthy? Do these people look like if something dangerous happened? They're having weather events and things like that. If something happened and it's a flood, we can't drive, we might have to walk 5 miles to save our life. Do these people look like they could walk that 5 miles in a safe, healthy manner? Do these people look like they might have a medical emergency if they had to do such a thing, especially if it was maybe a little bit warm, stressful? Do they look healthy? Like I said, I would tell them, talk to your family members, see what they eat. Do you have to take a lot of medication? Could you walk 5 miles to save your life? Just see how healthy they are, what they eat, how is that working out for their quality of life. Real-time check about this, including dental, because we talked about Dr. Cerina Fairfax, including dental. There's all that sugar, that's not just a diabetes thing, that impacts the chompers too. Just ask questions about these things. When you go to the doctor today, fuss at you about your diet and tell you need to eat more fiber and stop eating all them potato chips and Cheetos and Chips Ahoy and Lunchables, do they, wag their finger at you about that sort of thing? See what they say. Especially as they get a little, because some of the younger people can get away with that sort of thing, especially once they get a little bit older. See what they say. Ask them how often they eat vegetables. See what they say. But I would emphasize that. If I had children. Even, hey, those veggies, look where black people live. And then see, even we can go look right now. Get your tablet and let's look online. Let's see the place where they have the good groceries. We love all the kale and sweet tater salad and all that. Let's see where we get our produce, and let's see where the black people live and how far they have to go to get their produce. Explain it to them so we can understand this is not just you should think of food as counter-racism, because I don't think we do that. You should think of food as counter-racism. What I eat, putting it in my mouth, am I helping white people? Am I helping in the system? And even, hey, on a personal level, hey, I love me some tater chips, man. I didn't grow up vegan. McDonald's, man, I will bite you for a chicken nugget. I had my share of quarter pounders with cheese, your share of quarter pounder with cheese, probably somebody else's too. Apple pie, I know the McDonald's menu, like, back down, man. And they said that. The predatory advertising, of course, like I would explain all of that. This is what our friend Whitey wants us to eat. So that we can die. D'Angelo, man. 51. Be real about that thing. Chadwick Boseman, 43. Why are they not here? Gastrointestinal cancer. Do that have something to do with the bad food? Because I could have swore Dr. Ruby Lathan and them, they said the reason the people that we say we care so much about are not here, a lot of them, is white supremacy, racism, and then specifically what racists put on their plate or kept them from having on their plate. They don't want us to have no organic kale. Superfood. They don't get the Cheetos, get the Cheetos. That's how, and I mean, I'd be so serious about it. You said that, man, they got predatory, man. We heard that word predator a few times. It was for the predatory white sharks that they were lamenting, and predatory advertising to black children. That they say it's going to be resist. That's why I said, what did Mom Donnie, did he say something? Is he on board? Like, yes, we can do this, pass this. This will be great. Has he, because I don't live in New York, so I don't know. I'm curious. I would like to know, though. I am very curious. I would explain that if I lived in the New York area, I would explain that bill to my children, whether it passes or not. Explain, so that they grasp this is very important for you and even for parents. That's why I've said if you're going to have black children, man, get your diet correct. Do not bring your child into that house and you got all them Cheetos and potato chips, chocolate ice cream, Coca-Cola, sodas. I ain't named nary a vegetable. Come on. You ordering out McDonald's and all that nonsense. Like, come on. You are setting your child up for all kinds of health problems from day one. And really, if that's what you have been consuming during the 9 months while the child has been hanging out, you are setting your child up for disaster. That is exactly what racists want. Really, that's exactly how they set it up to be. Hopefully that will pass in New York, but that is something to pay attention to. What happens in New York? Did they pass all this, the junk food, and everybody can know, and we're not going to do no more predatory advertising and all of that. We get you informed when you go to the restaurants and such. Try not to do all that eating out. Try not to do all that eating out. Eat your own food if you can. Make your own food so much healthier, and you can save money. I mean, it's win, win, win. Let's see. The report on the military and people not wanting to, either looking to opt out if they did voluntarily enlist, and or figuring that, hey man, I said I was going to do it, but I just don't align with my values no more, and I don't like what Trump's doing, and we got to go over to Venezuela and all these old invasions and such, and I don't like how he's handling the Iran situation. All of that would be things to discuss, especially we had talked about before. If you're looking at the military as a career, that would be something to discuss with your offspring. Like, it might look peaceful and calm now. That could change depending on whom's is in the White House. Lots to think about. It might seem peaceful today. That could change quickly. Might be kind of difficult to opt out of all that once you've signed up, especially as a young person. Lots to consider. Let's see. The segment about the appropriate sizing on the map for the continent of Africa. Man, that no count admitted Jane Elliott. She talked about that 15 years ago. Like, I thought she was going to pop up on that segment on First Post. She literally made that a condition for being a guest on our broadcast. This is way back in like 2010. She said, you have to get a Peters map. And she talked about it's in the archive. I was going to almost go back and get that, but I was like, man, she is an admitted racist. Like, she is not. It's not like she invented the map. She is not the first person to say something about this. People have been talking about this for a very long time. But I had heard all of that before, and I remember specifically Jane Elliott talking about it. And I remember going and looking at that map, and that is something that pops in my brain computer when I see visual representations that almost inevitably the continent is undersized and misrepresented, and then they will over-represent the size of North America and the places where predominantly white people live. People have pointed this out for a very long. What they strive for accuracy. I mean, you dominate the whole planet. Why not give appropriate metrics on your empire? Even something as simple as that, to me, suggests, yes, the system of white supremacy can be defeated. Why do you have to lie about the size of the so-called continents on the map? You have been dominating the whole continent. It's yours. That's your massive project. Why lie about it? You could brag. We dominate all of this. Cairo to Cape Town. Put the appropriate size up. Why you got to lie about it? That right there to me suggests, oh yeah, this problem could be solved. Just got to get focused. We being non-white people, got to be careful with them pronouns. We being non-white people, victims of white supremacy, we got to get focused. More of us and serious. We're going to solve this problem and not sit here and waste time and hope for white people to come and hang out with us. Let's see. The segment on the French and them so-called reparations, whether they're going to give, I guess, a check and or if it's just returning everything that they stole, which to me is not reparations at all. You just giving back everything that you stole. Like, woo, I don't even know how that begins in a conversation of racism. But I saw that documentary down at LA. It's released now, Dahomey. They talked about that exactly. That's the whole documentary. All of these all this property that white people have stolen. And it was French white people in that film that they have stolen and cataloged and packed away and all of this. And now they want to be stingy and racist about, we don't want to give it back. And you all aren't even sophisticated enough to appreciate it. And all this old like nonsense. Like, come on, man. Come on. What does it mean to be white globally? That is white culture right there. Not, we don't have a culture. No. That's white culture right there. The racism, the looting, all of it. White culture. The section on in Georgia, them using these private companies so that they can operate drones and then I guess train some of the prison staff to use drones to knock down the drones that are being used to sneak in contraband. Black Mirror season 10. Like, what? And then even the contraband, the first thing that they said was chicken sandwiches. Now, I do recognize if you're in greater confinement, they generally are not going to serve you like caviar and, Godiva chocolate. I get that. But like, wow. If I don't know if I'm Detroit Red, or excuse me, if I'm Detroit Red, Andy Dufresne, and they say, hey, we got drone drop. We going, what you need? Like, chicken sandwich? It's got to be something. It's got to be something higher up. A phone, maybe. How we going to get out of here? It's got to be something higher up on that list than a chicken sandwich. A weapon? Maybe it's dangerous. I don't know. Again, I haven't been in greater confinement, spend all that time, and you get hungry. I don't have access to a blender, so I might feel differently. But man, what kind of chickens? Like Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich? McDonald's chicken sandwich? Like not there in Atlanta. Is this like Magic City chicken sandwich? Like, what are we? Anyway, so they're going to get the drones to battle the other drones. Man, that is when, especially when they said, hey, I'd like to go and have the drones spread all throughout the county. And they said, in Atlanta, I'd like to have the drones all over the county. That way we make sure the child molesters are where they're supposed to be. Now, if you were really that concerned about old Jeff Epstein, everything, in fact, I couldn't even focus on that because I just had Milwaukee in my brain computer with all the facial recognition technology. And then they just had the enforcement officer. He was using the cameras. He was using the license plate reader cameras to spy on females that he thought were attractive or his ex and all that. I said, man, that and worse is exactly what would be happening with the drones. In fact, what I would expect, where is the female locker? Hey, okay, let's get it around there. Yeah, or where's the elementary school? Where is the elementary school locker room? That's what I would expect. Guaranteed. That's what I would expect. I just posted the report where it was 2 white officers. They were going and taking pictures of deceased black females. Necrophilia. Deceased black females. Why do I think I would expect just, correct, professional behavior in a city teeming with black people? You got a drone camera you can just point and spot anywhere. Why would I expect that? Even if it's just we want to keep Leroy look suspicious. Got the Michael Vick jersey on. Keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him. That's what I would expect. We're going to keep an eye on the... You weren't concerned about keeping an eye on no Jeff Epstein before. And they said 10, too. They just say, I'd like to see if we can get like 10, 12 of them. Just put them all throughout the city. What? I thought you started off talking about this started off where we were using the drones to keep the prisoners from getting contraband chicken sandwiches. Now you need them all throughout the city? ATL indeed. Let's see. They in White Oaks Park. 29-year-old Jordan Coleman and 25-year-old. I thought Obeezy told us that these young white people were behaving themselves. They were doing the right thing, and they weren't messing over black people and all that. Like, you know, hey, we gonna do right. we had Obama, because these 20-year-olds, so they lived through the Obama years as they were young children. They should have, you know, that should have had a big impact on them. And I can see black people aren't all stupid, and they can function at that. White Oaks Park is in Cary, Illinois. You ask, what are the demographics of Cary, Illinois? excuse me, being ignorant, 79.2% white. Woo, it is hurting my brain because there's so few 0.92% Negroes in Cary, Illinois, where White Oaks Park is located. Population a smidge under 20,000. So this is kind of a tiny little enclave. I would say racially restricted region, just because it's not even 1% black. That's probably why these white brothers, and they're like DNA for reals, the Colemans, why they went at White Oaks Park. You privileged niggers came out here to fish at our white park? Are you crazy? We don't even have niggers. Get the gun, boys. They went to go shoot him in broad day. Man, and he's the alderman, one of the victims. I don't even know. All I can say, man, those racially restricted regions, when I went to Wisconsin, which I believe is contiguous with it is Milwaukee to Chicago. That's right there on the Great Migration Line. When I was in Wisconsin this past spring, 1 year ago, Sade C. Robinson murder trial, and I told you Milwaukee, city with the largest racial population is black people, it is bounded basically on all sides by all of these racially restricted regions where it's like no black people, same type of thing, 0.92% black, that type of thing, all around a city that is like 40% black, Milwaukee. I told you when I went to Brown Deer, Wisconsin, I went to go kayaking. Man, and it's racially restricted region. And I went to the park out there. And I said, man, when I got out and looked at that park, I said, oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. And I knew what to expect, but I mean, woo, seeing it, and then you go there like, wow, I hope I get out of Wisconsin. Like, man, I had that feeling when I was there. Like, man, I would not. They said they just went out to do some fishing on a Saturday afternoon. I went out to go kayaking on a Saturday afternoon. Man, I was by myself, too. It is pretty out here. I would not do no messing around. Like, woo, Jesus. And it was a bunch of those types of incidents. They had the next one where James O'Neil, white man, and he said, I can't even say white man, retract. Now this is one, the non-white people say that they're attempted counter-racist. Gus T, you don't know what you talking about. You up there serving up AI slop, talking about admitted racist. You darn fool up there saying nonsense. That ain't logic. That ain't counter-racist logic. Talking about admitted racist. Well, victims guaranteed qualified. James O'Neil yelled out in the recording, I'm a racist. Did you hear that part? Maybe I should have did the rewind. He said, I'm a racist. Talking to some black children. That's even that's white people do not care about children. But Mr. O'Neal, O-D-N-E-A-L, out threatening black children. He said, I'm a racist. Thank you for telling us. I say you talk to your children honestly about racism, white supremacy, what it means to be white. Now, you say, we don't call Mr. O'Neal an admitted racist. He's a racist suspect. Victims guaranteed qualified. I'm just going to replay the recording. If I got a chance, I would ask him, did you say that you're a racist? To a group of black children. Did you say that? Yes. Admitted racist, James O'Neal. Flawless logic to me, but victims guaranteed qualified. Again, I have noted there is a resistance calling things by their proper name on the part of individuals classified as white and victims of white supremacy. We don't even like to be called victims. We don't want to call white people admitted racists, and don't call us victims of racism. VGQ. Let's see. But that section, Mr. O'Neal got my pistol. Black father comes out trying to do best that he can. That's also why you have to be honest with your children. Hey, attempted father. And white people are dangerous. That's one of the reasons for those types of reports. Everything that I played this week, last 7 days, every single one. Those reports are important. I think we all need that reminder. Gus T at the top of the list. White people are dangerous. You had an alderman out just trying to do some fishing at White Oaks Park, and they almost got killed. White people are dangerous. I think even our inability to accurately assess and be honest about the danger of white people, it corrupts our brain computers so that people classified as black, maybe non-white people in general, we have difficulty properly processing danger, myself included. We talked about this with the young black children in Baltimore and elsewhere. It's not just Baltimore, and elsewhere, who do all the reckless stunts on the bike and everything. Like, whoa, you could be killed and arrested and then killed and all the Freddie Gray. But just inability to accurately process danger. And I think it goes right back to the system of white supremacy racism. The danger is white people. Let's see. Oh my God, they had the story. That's why I said it was so many of them. The young lady, she said she was at the store and the race soldier came and threatened her and said that black people need to be hung from trees. Man, come on. And we've had a lot of incidents like this where it's been something, young lady, a mom had her children, anyone going out to the grocery store or what have you, going to work, coming home from the post office, the most mundane thing, and then all of a sudden it is mortal combat. That also, like having a code. If something should happen, I think I said before, when it was a young lady, she was in a car and she had her offspring, a race soldier chased her down and was same type of thing, and kill you, Negro. There should be a code for when you're out in public. I say, number one, if anything happens, big time about de-escalate. Disengage. I'm going to try and get as much distance as I possibly can. I don't know if this person has backup. I don't know if this person is undercover law enforcement. I don't know if this person is armed. I don't know if this person has a gun. All of the above. I was going to get Brussels sprouts. I was not about mortal combat. That being the case, all of us, we should have a code about we go out, de-escalate, disengage, distance. If anything happens, we already have our code about how we're going to get that accomplished, and as quickly as possible. I would say, especially if you have offspring, whether they're with you or not, especially if you have offspring, like, oh man, I have much greater priorities to have a victim of white supremacy offspring that I am responsible for. I cannot be, especially for something I didn't even plan. No way. Let me get these asparagus and get back to the house. The report on Ashley Robinson, I think she might go by Ashley Janae, but Ashley Robinson, her actual name, young black female. And for that report, I had posted about it earlier in the week. I do think that it is significant that this young black female, who they say somehow ended up being deceased in Tanzania with her white partner. She was 30 years old. Her white partner, suspected racist, see, I don't just call everybody no admitted racist, but her white partner, Joe McCann, 45 years old. Now, I might have misstated Miss Ashley Robinson. Again, I think she goes by Ashley Janae, social influencer, as they say. She was 31. I think I said 30 before. 31, strive for accuracy. She's with her white partner, 45. That's the same sort of dynamic with a Sade Robinson, Maxwell Anderson. You age them both about 10 years, you'd wind up at the same spot. All of that, I played it before, but Fuller, Dr. Welsing, they both said, hey, no sex with white people. It's like a child being with an adult. That age dynamic just magnifies exponentially the power dynamic, or really the power imbalance, with having a white adult man and a black female child. Being only 30, I mean, come on. And that would be the same if it was a 45-year-old white female, 31-year-old black male. It would be absolutely the same. But race soldiers, like the white killer of Sade Robinson, they love this, to get someone who is young, to exploit just what I said. Jeff Epstein, they are child abusers. They are the master child abusers. Some 45-year-old white man, I can go get this black child, basically, even though she's 31, but I can go and get her, and we can go to another continent, another country, go halfway around the world, so she's away from all her family and friends, and we're in love. We're on, this is our fairy tale, and we're just living it up before the marriage. And then we get into an argument so bad we have to be separated. Even that right there, Fuller talked about that. Even if it had been Leroy and Lakeisha, black male, black female, you all argue so bad you have to be separated by management. Like, whoa, 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 the other guests are complaining and you shaking the pictures on the wall, and come on now, we can't even get a good night rest. We're going to put you in room A, we'll put you in room B, and we'll see if we... That, and we just got engaged? What are we fighting about that early? What are we fighting about that bad on a vacation? I know everybody, you have arguments and all that, but dang, it's so bad. It's so bad you didn't just mess up your vacation, you messing up other people's vacations? Come on, that right there. And she hung herself. She went to Tanzania to hang herself from a door after arguing with her 45-year-old white fiance. What fairy tale is that? I can repeat myself a lot. Our main problem is white people. Everything really radiates from that system of white supremacy racism. But our inability to accept, accurately assess what it means to be white, the danger that people classified as white represent to us, and to people classified as black specifically, it really causes damage to our ability to assess danger in general, and it manifests in some of the most tragic ways imaginable, just over and over and over. But that's really at the center of it. Talk to your children honestly about the system of white supremacy racism, and I mean, hey, at this point, at minimum, talk to your children about Sade Robinson. Brand new case. Covered it at the cows. Got the trial on YouTube. Talk to them about Sade Robinson, at minimum. Jeffrey Dahmer. Speaking of serial killers, the 60-minute report on the white sharks, I thought fascinating. The white sharks are revered in South Africa. White sharks almost have religious status, messianic status in South Africa. And the way that they talk about the orcas, because they were saying that they think these orcas are attacking them, the orcas are not white. They're often kind of dark. The way that they talk about, they said the orcas are serial killers. What? And I went and looked online. They have reports where they talk about the orcas as though they are on a murderous rampage. Same type of thing, serial killers. You know, they're invaders and killing all the orcas have been. The orcas might have been in those waters before white people were in that part of the world. Like, seriously. They are not invaders. We have been hanging out here for a long time. And they're attacking the great white, so they got to be beasts and the enemies and all that. And then the insult to injury on top of all of it. They were saying, do we really think that this is the orcas, or is this white people messing up their white brothers, the sharks, in South Africa with all the nets and the hooks? And even that, they said they put the nets with the hooks down and all that because they said they want to protect the white swimmers. And they say, hey, one dead shark, one less chance for a tragic human encounter. I ain't been to the beach in South Africa, but I do know a little bit about the history of apartheid, white supremacy, racism in South Africa. They are not talking about no Madiba, Winnie Mandela. That's who we put the shark nets with the hooks on it down, because we want to make sure ain't no great white gonna chomp on Madiba. That was not in their brain computer at all. Negro, you can't even be on the beach, much less swim. So you're putting down these nets with the hooks and everything to preserve white life, white swimmers, white beach goers, almost like exclusively in South Africa. That's what this is. Oh, okay. Maybe y'all could stop doing that. Nah. He said, well, we put different mesh down. And okay. And then they talked about they're destroying the system that the sharks use to feed on, because they put the nets down and it catches the smaller sharks as well. So it's like, man, so it might not even be that the niggerish orcas are eating up all the sharks to munch on their liver and everything. Maybe they're not serial killers. Maybe, I mean, it's not like the sharks are herbivores. They just munch seaweed and algae. They'll munch on the white people if given a chance. You take them nets down, I come munch on some of my white brothers. Apex predator, that's what they say. It might not even be that it's not the orcas. It might be that white conduct in South Africa, just like they're messing it up for black people, you're messing it up for the sharks too. Incidentally, even some highlight the racism of all of that. You have all this concern for the great white sharks of South Africa. Can we get some concern and even water? Hey, they got the fuel crisis, petrol for the black people, the Kafirs of South Africa. Can we get a little love? We can get back to Jaws later. Can the black people, can they get a little water, little teaspoon of petrol, maybe? We get back to them later. Got that. Let's see. The Justin Fairfax. If what we have been told is true, black people do not qualify for mental health. That might be another illustration of why Mr. Fuller says, we do not, or we should not call love everything. Can't have love in a system of white supremacy, racism, and can't be talking about I had to kill her because I loved her, and I had to kill her because I loved her with our children in the house to discover the bodies and make the 911 call. I could vomit. And Mr. Fairfax's wife, a black dentist. That is what we need. Maximum tragedy. What a disgrace. If what we have been told is accurate. I will even have to add, for years, because I didn't know this until we read Jeff Toobin, that O.J. Simpson's children were home when Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, when they were killed, they were at home and they were in the upstairs bedroom. If they had looked outside, they could have seen all of this happen right in front of their bedroom window. And I said, man, that when I found that out, like, wow, I don't know. I don't have children, but that is something for me to process, like a dad going and I'm going to kill the mother of my children's mom right in front of them and have like, what? That is, what? From what we have been told, that did, well, I guess, I don't know if he killed them in front of them, but man, that is, woo, what an abomination. System of white supremacy to blame. But man, in an environment where we need black dentists desperately. Ugh, man, first time, last time. What a tragedy. Condolences to the Fairfax family and children. Ashley Robinson's family as well. Let's see. We'll see if folks have commentary to share. Let's see. Retired firefighter in Florida should be with us. Yes, sir.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings, everyone. Report from the DCS program. We had a session today, this afternoon. Actually, what was in my plans, which I did carry out, was to go to a funeral service of the attempted dad of a former co-worker, and also he was a part of the International African Movement, which we also formed. But the good thing about it is that the father was a member of the Nation of Islam, a Muslim, of course, and their funeral services are not very long at all. And if you got anything to like about funeral services, that's the part I like. That's the type of funeral service that I do like, with all of these 3 and 4 hour services that a lot of non-white people, racially classified as black, having. Doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, I said that because I was able to get to the DCS session. I actually passed by the high school where we have our sessions, but it actually bothers me if I'm going to miss that particular session with those boys. I feel I was brought into the world to do something like that. And anyway, so I turned around and went back to the session. It still was about 2 or 3 more hours going on with the session, because the parents don't pick them up until 4 p.m. I was asked 2 weeks ago to show this film that I didn't know anything about the actors and whatnot. The name of it is Fruitville Station. I was a first-time watcher, just like the children that I was showing it to. And basically what the idea is what we want them to do. We want them to do most of the talking. Instead of hearing us talk and lecture and whatever, that type of thing. We want them to talk to answer questions, to make statements, that sort of thing, about what they see and what they're doing. And to watch a film, what I proposed and did was to, one by one, ask them to come up and tell us what you saw. Just tell us what you saw. And you would be impressed by how these children can really just from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, much more clearer than I would, in a lot of cases, talk about the film. And also what I'm going to do also behind that is now, and I don't know, Gus, if you watched it, you probably have heard about it and may have seen it. Now that opens up my opportunity to make statements and or ask questions about what do you do when you're confronted with law enforcement? What do you do? What you don't do? That sort of thing. And that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to initiate next Saturday. Since the watching of this film, it would still be fresh. And let me see, anything else? Yeah, that's basically what took place with me this week as far as would be good to talk about on this program. Thanks for listening.
Bravo, retired firefighter in Florida. I have seen that film dramatization. Ryan Coogler, who just they won everything at the Oscars, and incidentally were a part of the racist kerfuffle at the BAFTAs in the UK, where someone yelled out "Nigra" while they were trying to present. I think it was Delwood Lindo and Michael B. Jordan. But they were in connection with Sinners and all of that. Ryan Coogler's project, all those same people, except Delroy Lindo, were involved in Fruitvale Station, again about the 2009 death of Oscar Grant on the BART station in the Bay Area, California. Took a picture of the Fruitvale Station stop when I was in California towards the end of 2024. But yeah, I've seen that might even be one that's great because that event did happen. That's for sure one where, hey, you can go and actually see what happened with Oscar Grant and what happened with the officer who shot him. And yeah, even this happened. When did this happen? On New Year's Eve. Like, oh, that's what they mean when it can be kind of dangerous going out on the evenings and such. Like, I see. But great effort. Not surprised at all. The young people probably, or I don't know if they'd be old enough to have heard. Well, I don't know. Young people are smart and they have their phones and everything. But it wouldn't. I'll put it this way: it would not surprise me. If some of them at least maybe had heard about Oscar Grant before, if they have older parents, brothers, whomever, uncles, people like retired firefighter who chat with them about real life things, racism, white supremacy. I suspect some of them, or they might have even seen the film or at least heard of it, like Michael B. Jordan, he's a big star and all that. But bravo. And like you said, great opportunity to use that film to get them to kind of review things to do, things not to do if they are stopped by enforcement officials, and how best to survive even what to do New Year's Eve. Do we want to go out? Do we want to take maybe a safer protocol to survive the evening? Grand. If possible, since we do try to take advantage of the resources that we have at our disposal, retired firefighter, I was hoping you can put back on the firefighter cap for 5 minutes and just, if we could maybe borrow and get a few tips just to help us make sure that we are practicing safety in the kitchen, something you talked about before when I was messing up, and he said, hey, make sure if you cook, make sure you got that fire extinguisher kind of close by. It can be really easy. You can be there and thinking you're getting those victuals good to go, and then all of a sudden it's catastrophe. So try to keep that down, have that fire extinguisher close by. And I said, oh man, is he talking about, dang, I don't have but I got one. He said that. I went and corrected, and even we did our yoga retreat down in Florida in 2019. We had a few of the candles trying to, have nice soothing environment. He said, black brother, you about to burn the house down. I said, what? He said, you got the candle close to the curtains right there, and you about to have a fire, and we're not going to do no yoga. We're going to have to evacuate. I said, oh Lord. And we moved the candle over, and disaster was averted. But he will put the firefighter hat back on, make sure that things have not got out of hand, and we're going to get through this. Not going to have to do no CPR or call the fire trucks in. So just for our quick, make sure that Gus T and others are trying to be safe in the kitchen and hopefully not have to call 911, the man, for any catastrophes. If I can get a few quick kitchen safety tips in, as fire, and this is your role as firefighter, not hanging out and being shiftless, privileged black male. As firefighter, is it ever safe to leave a gas stovetop burner on the lowest setting unattended? Is that ever a safe practice?
I don't think so. I am very scared of those gas, as far as gas being the ingredient to operate your stoves and your that particular product in your kitchen, because I've not seen, but also been on so many situations where that gas exploded, and not only is it going to explode within the kitchen, I'm talking about the entire house in itself. Blow the roof off the place. I've been on these calls. Matter of fact, the windows of your neighbor would be blown out because what would take place by you not being around there, you'd be kind of surprised of how quickly that gas would circulate through the house, and for whatever means that it would be attached to something that would light it. It's not as flammable potential as gasoline, but it's not that far off. It's not that far off. So I would advise anybody to if you're not going to be around for more than just seconds, then you need to turn that stove off. That would be my suggestion, because I've seen the results of it, and also as far as that's basically would be my thoughts on it from a surface standpoint. How does that sound to you?
That's a little frightening, but hey, we were asking for truth. I was not exactly expecting blow the neighbor's windows out, but I mean, hey, explosive situation. Okay, much obliged. So even on the lowest setting with the gas burner stovetop, you're, as a firefighter, retired, you say, no, you need to be attentive. If you're going to turn around, if it's going to be more than a few seconds, turn it off. That's your professional opinion?
Yeah, yes, sir. Because I don't know what your understanding of for a slight amount of time. I don't know what that is for you. Mm-hmm. I had to be around you to really know on what you're describing as a short amount of time. But the only thing I do know, I have been on those calls. I've been on those calls, and it's kind of weird because it's not like what you would think of a fire, where you would see burns and whatnot, the soot, that's that type of stuff around. But you would see stuff bent up, windows blown out, and you would see no soot or anything like that because the gas creates an explosion. It creates an explosion, and it's that pressure that builds up and whatnot that would cause something like that to happen. But one reason probably on why it would ignite into flames, if because you have things like plastics. You may have a curtain in the kitchen area, and or something flammable that would be initiated from that gas explosion, that would take place, and I would just state, if you're not going to be around it, turn it off. If you're not going to be around it, turn it off. That's the safest thing. It may curtail your excellent dinner and whatnot somewhat, but at the same time, the better thing is that you would be in a situation where you would not have that problem of an explosion. It'd be no doubt almost that you wouldn't have the explosion. So that's what I would tell anybody, on it, because unless I'm right there myself, or watching it on a film, that sort of thing. Oh, he just went to the bathroom to urinate and he'll be back in 30 seconds, that sort of thing. And I would be looking at it. I would say, okay, well, that's not that big of a deal, but I really don't know about what a short amount of time actually is unless I'm looking at it. or you have a stopwatch yourself and you see, it was only 30 seconds, that sort of thing, but I'll just take the more safer road by saying cut it off. Cut it off and then come back and cut it back on. But we did when I grew up with, we had a gas stove in our house. As a child, you don't know anything about no safety, danger, anything like that. Especially to the level that I know about from being on the fire department. But the good thing about it is, hurricanes happen, a lot down in this region, in the northwestern hemisphere. And what takes place? The power goes off, but people with gas stoves, so the neighbors will come and ask to cook their food. They used to happen a lot, with us. We had a gas stove at the time, but all of that was before I was on the fire department. I became very afraid of gas at a house, because of the unawareness. I put it that way, the unawareness of the dangers that can happen with that gas coming in to the house. Yeah.
I'm ignorant myself.
I got one story to tell on that subject. Also, I did it many years ago on your program. I think we got a call, attention house fire, and you can almost tell when something is real bad because people are out in the street on the sidewalk, and as soon as they see that fire truck, they hear it coming. As soon as they see that fire truck coming around the corner, you see people out waving, "Come on, hurry up, hurry up." That sort of thing. Yeah. And so you could, and basically what it was, well, we knew it was a house fire, and myself and the other tailboard guy, we went through. They had bars on all of the windows, the door. We had to actually tear off bars from the picture window in the front, and that's how we got into the house. Myself and the other guy, and you can't see anything in a real fire. That's why I don't watch that crap on TV, because there's nothing realistic about a fire that you see on TV, movies, and all that kind of stuff. It's nothing like the real thing at all. You can't see anything into a real terrible fire, and for some reason it's so much noise to whereas you can hardly hear the other person that you're in there with. So anyway, I remember going over a couch, what felt like a couch, and when we came on the surface of the floor, felt something soft, but we feeling around. What we were doing, we were looking for somebody, because before we went in the house, I heard a female state, "My children are still inside," and so we was looking around for them. You know, we're not trying to put out the fire right now. We're looking for those children, and we found one of them. We found one of them near the front door. And the front door, you know, had a lock on it, and had, you know, the heavy gate-like type of security bars up there. She couldn't get out. We literally left her there. Left her there. We were going to take that dead child out of the house, and all those people out there, and we just covered her up. Rescue came in from the back door, and they dragged the male child out, put him in a rescue, and took off. He took off towards Jackson Hospital, and so that I'm gonna tell you how it started. Actually, what it was, the father had his only transportation was a moped, one of those gas, you know, little motorcycles. They were called mopeds back during that time. And he didn't want to leave it out on the front porch because it gets stolen. So he kept it in the house. He kept it in the house in the kitchen next to the stove. The tank on the moped was leaking gas. I ain't got to tell you the rest. That's how the fire started so fast, you know, from that. And everybody just went into panic. They just went into panic. And when something like that takes place, you're not used to it, you're probably going to panic. You're probably going to panic. Some of the things that you normally would do, okay, I'm thinking about the children and whatnot, that sort of thing, you know, it would escape your mind. It would escape your mind, and you just go crazy. And that's probably what happened with them, because the two parents were able to get out the house, but the boy and the girl didn't. They didn't. It still kind of like bothers me today, you know, to even talk about that particular situation. But that's, you know, so I would cut that gas off. But
amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Turn the gas off. And again, this is I'm not an expert on kitchen safety, and I say, hey, I'm ignorant. I'll see if, you know, maybe a retired firefighter, he can share a few tips from his time on the force that'll benefit myself, so I can learn a little bit, and then any of the folks listening in, they can learn a little bit too. All of us can hopefully try to be safe, you know, while we get our Brussels sprouts and healthy vittles together to do our counter racism. How often were you on calls where there was some sort of emergency that involved an unattended stovetop burner in some sort of residential or commercial emergency?
I've been on a lot of fires, house fires. And when I mean by house, I'm also talking about apartment, and a lot of them do start in the kitchen. Some of the worst fires actually take place in the living room, in the bedroom. That's where you have a lot of flammable material, you know, that sort of thing. But it's just it's a gambit of calls that I've been on over the years involving fires where people stay at, and I would say the worst ones are in the bedroom, and for the most part, it's either some sort of, it may be your electrical outlet, or it may be from a person smoking, and they fall off to sleep. And of course, what they're smoking ends up on that very flammable surface that's called the bed, with the blankets and all of that stuff. And it don't take long. It doesn't take long at all. And once that fire gets up, you got a combination of the heat and the means to not be able to see. And those are two great motivational factors that causes a person to panic. There's nothing like heat that comes from a fire. I wouldn't want nobody to experience anything like that. In our training, they have manufactured structures that they can heat up. You can start a fire inside for training people and heat up, and even that is dangerous. Matter of fact, there was a white firefighter trainee that was killed. Going on now probably about 25 years ago. The instructors, white male instructors, were showing off on how good they are and blah blah blah, to the recruits and that sort of thing. And they got it so heated inside of this structure, they couldn't even stand it. They panicked and left that guy in there. They left him in there. He was a husband. I don't know if he had any children, but he definitely was a husband and whatnot. The Dade County Fire Department, I know, paid out millions of dollars on that situation, and they fired maybe about 2 or 3 of those instructors, along the way. But yeah, did I answer your question?
Yes, because I was asking about the how often the kitchen fires, and you were saying that it's like you've been on a variety of calls about the different types of fires. I think you said most common is the bedroom, but kitchen is certainly dangerous as well, and the gas elements.
Yeah.
With, I guess, pivoting back to the kitchen, and for people that have gas, either kitchens in their home or gas element in their home, period, what, as a retired firefighter, what is the proper procedure if you have been cooking or if you haven't been cooking and you smell a funny pickle, vinegarish kind of odor in the house? For people who don't know, sometimes the natural gas will have that smell in it so that people can detect, like, wait a minute, what is that? If you kind of detect that odor, if you have been cooking or haven't been cooking in your house, what do you recommend that people do to stay safe?
You're stating if you smell the gas?
Yes, sir. If you can smell that odor in the hause, if you have been cooking
or haven't been cooking. If you can get to it, the main cutoff, if you can get to it and turn it off. Get to it and turn it off, and get as far away from where the smell is, and if you can do that and start opening up, open up windows if you can. Now, if it's really kind of bad, just exit the house. Just exit the house. As far as that's concerned. So I'm giving you different degrees of safety. If it's something, let's say, let me see, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 1 kitchen type of setting, and let's say if you're in the furthest away and the smell is real strong, matter of fact, the smell is so strong you weren't in a deep slumber, but you were kind of like just relaxing and whatnot, and it's real strong. Then you probably need to get out. But I would say first try to turn off the gas if you know where it's at, where the if it's on the stove. Well, of course it'd be just on the stove. It may be during the cold periods of time that it may be somewhere else, or one of those, a heater of some type. But if you can't turn it off, get out 911. And the bottom line, in other words, you got to stay ahead. You got to stay ahead of the potential catastrophe.
Amen.
You got to stay ahead of it.
Amen.
And and your thinking machine called the brain needs to start working. And it's just like what they say about riptides. Panic is probably the main thing on why people end up drowning, because they fight against the tide, and they end up getting tired, and that's the drowning process starts. Well, with the gas, you want to if you can get close to it, where the outlet is to cut off the gas, then fine and good, get that done, and then start opening up windows and stuff. Because actually it's like one of those balloons that you get at the carnival, where they fill it up with the gas. If it has a hole in it, it's going to dissipate after a while. If they have a hole in it, but if it don't have a hole in it, watch out. Watch out. Because most times nowadays, just about everybody has an air conditioner now, and so they have the windows closed, and that, like I said, that gas would get into that house. And after a while, something would ignite that gas. Something would ignite that gas, and I have seen it. It is weird. It is real weird, because you couldn't tell if it was a fire. You would see windows busted out. You would see bent iron, or whatever those bars are made out of. They'd be bent from the pressure that took place in that explosion, and I tell you, that gas is nothing to play with.
I believe that's exactly why I came to sneak my questions in, because I'm ignorant about kitchen fire safety, and I said I'm gonna acknowledge my ignorance, and I'm gonna see if we're lucky enough I can borrow a retired firefighter, and I'm gonna mute my line and shut up and see if I can get in a few questions, and he'll help, because I'm ignorant. So I've been taking notes. I said, don't leave the pan. Turn it off if it's going to be more than a few seconds. The gas is nothing to play with. I've been taking notes. If I open the windows, if the gas gets left on, open the windows. If you can get to the main shutoff valve, do that as well. I've been taking notes. With the with the newer model stoves, just in your professional experience, with those newer models, is it easy to accidentally turn them on, or are they, because I know sometimes you have to kind of push them in and then turn them as well to get them on? Is it kind of difficult? Have they engineered it so it's a little more challenging to accidentally get the gas and the stove burner turned on, or does that happen in your experience?
I'm not sure of that, but I would say based on people behavior, that some people call human behavior, but based on people behavior, people can find all kinds of things and mess it up. Children especially. Children can also, get the things either to mess it up, mess things up, so. I don't see. Basically, the disaster or the problem has happened already before I got there. So, and I never had a gas stove myself personally. So my experience is where the problem has already happened. Am I making sense to you?
Yes, sir. I think you had said previously that, when you arrive on the scene and nothing is singed and all that, you just see the windows busted out, and maybe even the neighbors' windows have been broken through and all that. So it's kind of a weird, I guess, event to after everything has happened so quickly. So because it's an explosive event, I think, as you said. I told you I've been taking notes because I'm the ignorant one here. I'm trying to learn on this one. So, and hopefully listeners as well. Racists, they put a lot of us victims of white supremacy in dangerous locations. And then I am not super smart about gas. I'm not super smart about fires or anything. Let's rewind. I'm not super smart about anything. And then I'm not super smart about fires, and then I'm not super smart about gas. So I was F's on everything. So I'm trying to, get a little bit better. Let me nab our caller in Florida at the courthouse really quick before we get out of here with our fire safety with our retired firefighter in Florida. I have learned a lot. Thank you, sir. Hopefully some other people can not burn the house down. Let's see. Our caller in Florida also. Did you have commentary?
Yes, sir. May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. Gus, I was thinking about an example of the geography part, like the area in the city where I reside and where I grew up at. They just put a new, well, I guess it's not new. They reopened the old business that was fast food, and they made it into a drive-through liquor business. I'm not sure who owned the place or whatnot, but the place was closed for years, and it is definitely not anything that's healthy or constructive, but they made it into something called fast liquor or something. They put the term fast in it. And it is where you have to go into another part of town or the city. And then that's where you have the Whole Foods and more of the grocery stores that have the produce and things like that. So I thought to share that example with you. And just two other things on the audio segments. The part where I think that was the race soldier who pulled the gun out on the victims. I believe they said that the person was charged with something without intent to kill. And I'm thinking that's because, the person, a white person, and, he might get some kind of benefit out of that. And the segment on the albino affairs where they kept mentioning the orca, and I know they like to use that term whale killer. Well, I just typed it in Google, and it says whale killer and killer whale, and that's the only part. Because I searched orca, but it only has highlighted, it says or whale killer or killer whale. And I'm thinking, man, they ain't have nothing else highlighted in the paragraph. And the way that they were describing the orca, will they end up teaching other orcas how to go around and being predators and killing whales and things like that? And it just really does just sound like it's synonymous with how the white supremacist media and how they depict black people. And I thought about the white population messaging that as well, and how they spoke about the white whale or the great white shark, excuse me. And one last thing I wanted to share, speaking on the animals, I believe I shared this, but I wanted to share it again. It was a suspected racist coworker that I took a screenshot of this racist joke. I think it was a racist joke where she said, if a hawk kills a single crow, is it still considered murder? So I screenshot that one. So to repeat it again, she said, if a hawk kills a single crow, is it still considered murder? And that's all I have to share. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
What in the world? If a hawk kills a single crow, is it still considered murder? The cracker, see? And he said he took a screen. Come on. Man. What does it mean to be white? Much obliged, our caller in Florida. That's why I put it with albino affairs. I thought this is the exact way that white people talk about all of the other white critters and people classified as white. And then he said they weren't even calling them orcas. Shark killers. The killer sharks. Oh, like that's not orca. And we've been here like we talking about, man, talking about us like we're serious. I'm not no Jeffrey Dahmer, man. I'm not no Hannibal Lecter. Or they got a scientific name and everything. You don't talk that way about the great whites. If the orcas were white, that alone might change the conversation. Be a new white king in town. Maybe they would be champion the orca. Oh, and they even, I looked online, it's just like when they talked about the people, and they played you could hear it in the clip for 60 minutes. The white people, or either way, the Afrikaners, the white people, they were the ones cheering. They said you used to go to the beaches, I guess whichever popular ones, not Robbins Island, Madiba, you go to the beaches and see the sharks. They said all of that is so expensive, like to go diving, or you're going to go out on the water and all the rest of it. And let's go, like all of that, just like here. And just like here, you don't have no black swimmers and all the rest of it. Same thing. Exact same dynamic of white supremacy, racism. And then they're going to cheer for the white sharks when they're not killing them to keep the white beaches safe. He said the geography for his part of Florida, he said that they got the fast liquor. Not fast produce. Not fast citrus. We're in Florida. Fast liquor. I thought he said drive-through liquor, like my little ignorant Negro brain computer, pecan-sized it may be, was thinking, wait a minute, if you drive through, like you're going to get the onion rings, but you go through the drive-through to get the Mad Dog, are you encouraging drinking and driving? Like, what? Maybe I'm being ignorant. They say you go, if you get out of your car, and I guess, but I mean, you put it in my hand and I'm still driving. I just crack the seal and keep rolling. Like, I don't know. Did we need fast liquor? Did we need a drive-through liquor store? Like, I'm being ignorant maybe. I don't. And he noted the GI. He didn't tell us, unless he fibbed about the geography, the location. He said that's where the colored folks stay. He said you have to travel a distance, and the Whole Foods of North Florida. Maybe Tim Tebow stopped by here, get his fresh organic spinach and carrots and beets and leeks, okra, all the rest of it. He said, I don't need no fast liquor, man of God, but I do need the organic spinach. They don't have that at the fast liquor. Always. And I would point that out to my offspring. I would point that out. This is what they want us to eat. The Cheetos, corn chips, Chips Ahoy, fast liquor. That's what they want us to eat. The white people, no. Spinach. I would get the name. Who is that dude or female at the University of Washington who said that, hey, I can look at the size of your employees and tell who is being compensated correctly and who doesn't get a living wage, And they're going to have to go, and sometimes they'll say at Fast Liquor, they might sell Cheetos. They might sell some salty potato chips. I've seen that sort of thing. I've been to the liquor store. They don't have no spinach. You're not going to get no Brussels sprouts. You're not going to get no purple broccoli. You can get something purple. It ain't going to be broccoli. Excellent field reports are healthy eating, drinking this easy. I'm not going to the Fast Liquor. I'm going to get my water. Lots of it's getting warm in Florida. Hydration, not the spirits. Mad Dog. Anywho, so we will do it up tomorrow. That is Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Everyone should file at least one FOIA request per year. I have said this before. I didn't really put my full weight. One, I was kind of a hypocrite because I wasn't doing it. So now I can walk it better than I talk it. Everyone should file at least one FOIA request per year. Maybe it might be a FOIA request on yourself. Are you a fan of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing? Have you been to some of her lectures? They might have a file on you too. We will chat it up tomorrow, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on Tim McVeigh Day. I know they would hate that in OKC. Like, are you serious? Jesus Christ. OKC Day, April 19. We will do it up. The bomb. We will do it up. The FBI files on Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Now, of course, white people don't give you everything. So this is just, the initial, what did we get? What does this reveal? We'll chat it up tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hopefully that will encourage. If you haven't done one for this year, all of us should file a FOIA request, Victims of White Supremacy, for Dr. Welsing's file. That's it. We'll do it up tomorrow. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. Don't you be no loyal customer at Fast Liquor. Drink more water. Creator, we ask that you remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us, stop name-calling people classified as black. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Just wanted to make sure I got his name in again. The suspected racist, suspected killer of Ashley Robinson, 45-year-old Joe McCann's snuck off to Tanzania, be with a 31-year-old black female. That is about what I would expect from the killer of Sade Robinson, Jeff Dahmer. That is exactly what I would expect. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.
And Doug.
There's nowhere I wouldn't go to help someone customize and save on car insurance with Liberty Mutual, even if it means sitting front row at a comedy show.
Hey everyone, check out this guy and his bird. What is this, your first date?
Oh, no. We help people customize and save on car insurance with Liberty Mutual together. We're married. Me to a human, him to a bird.
Yeah, the bird looks out of your league anyways.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.